zone.com.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American-made and serve those who serve us, our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual veterans and firefighters in need nationwide. Check out neverforgottenapparel.com, use promo code DOC, and get 15% off your purchase. That's neverforgottenapparel.com.
All things food service, recipes, and restaurants. Spoony.
Hey folks, this is Chef Patrick Mosher, better known as the Food Biz Pro, here on Spoony Radio. We have shows regarding food, food culture, the restaurant business, consulting services for businesses, startups of all sorts, not just the restaurant industry. We talk about travel, food destinations. It's a lot of food, fun, and family. Mike from the World Food Championships will be coming on, giving us a weekly update on Saturday afternoons on what's new in the world of food sport. Yes, folks, I said food sport. No, it's not where competitors walk into Kitchen Stadium and beat each other to death with a limp fish. It's where you have 2,000 events which lead to the World Food Championships. Join us for the World Food Championship updates every week. Join us on Spoony on the Dash Radio Network, 24/7 Food Talk Radio.
We're not solving all the world's problems, but we're bringing people to the table. Spoony, food and fun.
Hey, welcome to Doc's House of Flapjacks on this Spoony.com. Welcome to our brand new studio here, if you haven't checked it out. Still under construction, but we're making progress. In the next couple of weeks or so, we'll give you a little behind-the-scenes tour as well and expand the entire platform. But thanks so much for joining us. My daily dive into the world of food and food culture and all things that are yummy. I am a foodie. In addition to everything else, I just love to eat. I love to cook. I love all things food. So thanks so much for joining us. If you want to join me on social media, you can do so. It's at Doc Thompson Show or Facebook.com/Doc Thompson Show and also at MeWe.com. All right, coming up today's Doc's House of Flapjacks, foods to get arrested for. What food would you be willing to get arrested for? Mine is a very long list, yes. The surge of Instapot. And also on today's list, the best hot dogs by state. Now, what food would you be willing to get arrested for? Now, what food do you love so much you'd be... Well, here's what happened. Over in England, a gentleman was speeding. Police in the UK pulled a guy over. He was doing, 15 miles over the speed limit. Actually, he was driving 20-some miles over the speed limit. When they pulled him over, he gave an excuse of he was trying to quickly get to kebabs, to get some kebabs in Manchester. 23. He's 23 years old. So he's racing to get kebabs. What food would you risk life, limb, and possible arrest for? Would it be kebabs? Maybe. I've had really good kebabs. Fantastic kebabs. Would I be willing to go to jail for them? Have you had Zoe's Kitchen? Zoe's Kitchen? It's kind of a national chain. A lot of times I see them around Whole Foods. Are they owned by the same company? Do you know anything about...
I don't think they are.
They always seem to be... Maybe it's just that trendy little area where they're... Chef Patrick Mosher popping in as well. Have you been to Zoe's Kitchen?
I have. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, I used to really like Zoe's Kitchen.
I've only been there within the last couple of years. I don't know how old it is. What do you mean used to? How old?
Like 3 or 4 years ago, it seemed like everything was made in each store fresh.
Okay.
Just the way things come out now, it looks like they're pre-preparing them in some either like a production kitchen, and then spreading the love to all the other stores. It almost looks like the kebabs were frozen and shipped to the store frozen. The flavor's not what it used to be. So,
because this is the last time I was there to have kebabs about a year and a half ago. And so my wife and I go in, we both get kebabs, and it's that new style where you go up to the counter. What do you call that, Patrick? Where you order at the counter, but then sit down.
Fast casual.
Fast casual. So we go up to the counter. She gets the beef. I get the chicken kebabs. And as she ordered, I was like, beef kebabs, I don't know. As it turned out, she didn't love hers. She thought it was good, not great. Yeah. I loved mine. So I told her, you should have gotten the chicken on this. And I was right. They have really good hummus, though, in the little pita dish.
Their hummus is amazing, and their pita's good.
Spectacular. So when I think kebabs now, it's just, and obviously if you go to New York on the street, there's all kinds of kebabs or whatever. I have a great grilled kebabs. Very simple. Grilling out back, you can do it summertime, but it's wintertime as well. If you get the skewers and you skewer them up, and you do a mix of chicken kebabs with various onions, green peppers. You can do other peppers as well.
Mushrooms.
Right. Mushrooms and pineapple.
Yep.
Marinate the kebabs in a Greek dressing and then put it on there. Put it on the grill.
Okay, again, why do I not eat before our shows?
Right, exactly. I'm going to tell you a little secret, though. It's almost not enough flavor. The Greek dressing, and you got to be generous. I'd keep drizzling that. I'd make sure to salt and pepper it even as they're wrapping up. And the problem with kebabs like that is the vegetables and the meat cook at different temperatures, so you're losing some of it. I've learned now I do the meat separate. It looks prettier to kebab them up, but I do it separate. It's an amazing, and it's pretty healthy. And I love that pineapple and pepper flavor together.
Oh, the bell pepper?
Yeah.
The way, kind of, and the pineapple caramelizes on the outside where it gets the grill marks. That's the best.
And it's almost, the problem with the pineapple, once it cooks too much, it's not as sweet, and the sweet really helps all of that too.
Absolutely.
But that's good. Do you have any kebab ideas that pop or anything you've done that's different?
Actually, like swordfish.
Oh,
because it's really meaty, almost like steak-like.
People don't realize that if you've not had swordfish. If you don't love fish, if you're not a seafood person, try some alternative fish like swordfish because it's not fishy.
It's not. I mean, it's very dense. It almost eats like a steak. And if you overcook it, it's very much like a well-done steak. But that's really good. You can do it with the same things: tomato, maybe some mushrooms, onions, bell peppers, etc. But the marinade for that, you can use like a white balsamic vinaigrette for that.
Nice.
Yeah, and then you can do a dark balsamic reduction for that, like a regular balsamic reduction.
Nice.
It's really good.
So what food would you get arrested for? A guy was racing to get the kebabs. Would you risk life and limb for kebabs?
Yeah, I read that story. What am I willing to get arrested for?
Pizza.
Now just pulled over and like given a ticket or being arrested?
Either or. Yeah, getting a ticket. I'm willing to get a ticket for it. I'm willing to get a ticket if I'm just annoyed in traffic. It's just time to be home.
I'm going to take the curb.
Right, exactly. But
I'd have to say if there's one thing I'm willing to get arrested for,
it's probably great pizza for me. And there's so many great pizzas. One of these days, once Patrick and I continue to grow this platform and we get a lot more content and our ducks in a row, we're going to really put together some lists of the best pizzas and stuff in America.
I mean, as a chef, I'm not sure I want to throw my food out there, but because it's a dog, it's a hot dog.
Yeah.
Gray's Papaya Hot Dogs in New York.
And I've never had those. And I'm going to do a hot dog list today.
Yeah, and nothing like an $8 hot dog, but hey, they're really good.
And the Chicago dogs too, right? With all the different stuff on them, right? That's a big Chicago thing.
Yeah, well, the standard Chicago dogs I really like. It's the onion and mustard and pickle.
Right.
That's one way to have them. Tomato sometimes, but
doesn't Chicago do more like the papaya dogs type stuff with all the different stuff?
Yeah, they
on
do,
them?
And also their dog's a little bit different. It has a lot more beef in it. I think. But the casing, it's got to have natural casing. It has to have that snap to it.
Yeah.
That's the best.
That's awesome. There is I was thinking about it earlier or over the weekend. I don't know why, but great pizza came up in my head since we're talking about pizza and you get arrested for. Angelo's Pizza on the west side of Cleveland. It's actually in Lakewood. I think they have a couple locations now. It's been around 30 years, maybe more. It is like the Pizza Hut pan pizza back in the day. Before Pizza Hut made the decision to go more delivery, and they were, the dine-in places. Do you remember that pan pizza? Came actually in the pan at your table, the deep dish, and
and it was kind of underneath. It was like a little bit of oil in there, just a little bit.
Yeah,
and the crust was really crunchy and almost burnt, but just brown because sometimes the cheese got over the side of the pan.
It's fantastic. Now you still order their pan pizza. It's different. It's not what it was. If you like pan pizza, good for you. That's great. It's fine for what it is. But those of you that remember, you sat in, they had the salad bar, and you got the Coke and the big red tumbler with the crushed ice.
It's almost like a deep fried pizza on the bottom. It's
fantastic.
I mean, it was oily, but it was so good.
And they introduced the world to deep dish pizza, or America, right? I mean, it wasn't a thing before that. There was pizza, and then there was like Chicago style.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's what Angelo's like. Angelo's is like, and they have great flavorful sauce. That I would get arrested for.
Look, I mean, I've had a lot of great food around the world. I'm still not sure I'm willing to go to jail for a bite of food.
I am. Okay, I got to tell you, speaking of Angelo's Pizza, Do you ever flash back to dumb things you've said or done throughout your life?
Daily.
Do you have, I mean, I do like daily, like, I shouldn't have said that 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But do you ever do?
Oh, yeah, but Brad, I apologize for what I said last week.
Well, have you ever do that, like, remember, like, a scenario where you just said something really stupid, like 40 years ago, and you're like, crud.
Daily.
Okay, I think about that. I'm at a meeting with a bunch of friends, and we're having Angelo's Pizza. Now, I'd only had it once before, and I'm at this big meeting, a corporate meeting in Cleveland, everybody from all the stations I worked at, and they brought in Angelo's, and I hadn't looked at the box yet. And remember, this is like, 20 minutes away over in Lakewood and whatever. Somebody was smart and got Angelo's. I had only had their deep dish, okay? And they had a variety, and I had their regular thickness of pizza. And, going to be different. I pick up a bite. I was like, wow, this is great. This is awesome. And I go to a buddy of mine who's standing there, who's eating pizza, and I go, Jim, have you ever had Angelo's? He goes, that's what this is. And I was like, crud, I'm an idiot.
Yeah. One of those moments.
Anyway, I'd be willing to get arrested. Certainly a ticket for all kinds of pizza. The surge of Instapot. We covered this a couple weeks ago in the Instapot craze right now. I'm fascinated by it. This could lead to a lot more people eating healthier, and certainly it's going to be one of those life hacks. On this show, on my other broadcasts or whatever, I'm all about the life hacks, what we can do to make life just a little bit easier. Listen, the truth is, all of us, it doesn't matter who you are, what your culture is, your background. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. At the core of all of us, there are some truths. One of those truths is we're all trying to get through life as best we can. We are. You're trying to do for your family. You're trying to do for yourself, your career, your future, whatever those things are. Some of us are doing it while avoiding landmines and literal and figurative.
You wake up and try not to suck.
And you try not to suck. Right? That's it.
Do it a little better than yesterday.
Right. Make a couple of bucks, put food on the table for the family, the whole thing. We all know that. And so anytime we can find those life hacks, I love talking about them. Those little things most of us cannot realistically expect to be a millionaire tomorrow. We're not going to hit the lottery. We're not going to get that stuff done. So if I can make your life a little bit easier, a little bit better, all about it. Instapot's going to be one of those. So I have a couple of Instapot recipes or some things to think about maybe you haven't thought about before. This is awesome. And remember, the Instapot is 1 part pressure cooker, primarily pressure cooker, with 1 small part crock pot, slow cooker. Was Crock-Pot a brand name? That was a brand name, wasn't it? That's what that was.
Yeah, Crock-Pot was the original slow cooker.
Okay, because then you did the others or whatever. Pinto,
and by the way, if you're not aware, I'm producing Doc Show. I'm pretending to, sitting in the booth. So if something goes wrong, the audio or the video, drops, it's just me screwing up.
That's why he's not on set right now. We're just figuring this whole thing out. Pinto beans and chorizo. This is from Budget Bites. This is pretty cool. Well, when I was a kid, my parents would often have a meal of something that now sounds pretty good. But at the time, I just looked at them like they were Martians. They would make beans for dinner. And that was dinner sometimes. And they loved it. What are the white beans? Navy beans?
Yeah, there's cannellini and navy.
I think it's the navy beans.
They're about the navy a little smaller. Yeah.
Okay, so my mom would soak the navy beans because she'd get the dried beans, soak the navy beans. And there would be some like ham hock or something in it to flavor it. But there was no meat. And that was dinner. It was a big bowl of beans. She would often, though, while making beans, there was a standard she would make cornbread with it. And that was meal. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? And this was in her repertoire. One of probably 30 prime dishes. It didn't come up as much as other things, but this was it. And at the time, I was like, I'm not eating that. And I just usually have a little cornbread, and that would be dinner. Or I'd find, scavenge something out in the refrigerator. But now, a bowl of beans, like, that sounds awesome.
Hey, that and cornbread, it's a 3-course meal. Two bowls of beans and a piece of cornbread.
That's what she had, yeah.
Or one bowl of beans and 2 pieces of cornbread.
So listen to this. So Instapot pinto beans and chorizo. You're going to set that, forget it. This looks awesome. So I'm going to share some of the recipe with you so you understand. Prep time, about 15 minutes in the Instapot because it's fast. So you got a little cooking oil, chorizo, yellow onion, garlic, pinto beans, bay leaves, cracked pepper, They say reduced sodium chicken broth. That's probably a good idea, especially if you're using chorizo and stuff. Diced tomatoes. Dice the chorizo. Add it to the Instapot with cooking oil. Press the saute button. Adjust the temperature down a little bit while the chorizo is sauteing. Dice the onion, mince the garlic. When the chorizo is crispy, add the garlic and onion. Add the beans, the bay leaves, and the other spices. Add the broth. Allow to cook for 35 minutes.
Tasty.
How awesome and healthy is that, right?
That sounds good. Yeah, and it's so the thing about the Instapot is that you can saute, you can roast, you can use it as a pressure cooker. Mm-hmm. So instead of using a bunch of different pots and pans, you have one.
Oh, yeah. Well, and when I said 50 minutes, that's prep time.
Yeah,
obviously
but still.
Cook time's about an hour, yeah.
But that's pretty good.
But think about the variations you can easily do on that. And that's one of the things I love about recipes like this is that, let your mind wander. You don't like chorizo or you want to do something enough? Chicken. It's not going to have the same
like white
kick
beans,
to
use black beans or
right,
pinto.
But, yeah, I mean, obviously chicken's not going to have the same kick that chorizo does or whatever. Add a little more spice or something like that.
You know what? If you don't like chorizo or you don't eat pork, say, add a can of Rotel tomatoes instead of the diced tomatoes.
Oh,
with the
nice.
mild or medium.
Over the weekend, you ready for this silly? So I go to the Walmart neighborhood market, and they have the bakery stuff that's day old, or I don't know, it's all day old, whatever, marked down. I don't know how old it is. And I've noticed this, they're doing these little sweet cornbread loaves, and you get a pack of like 8 of them for a couple bucks, and these were marked down, so it was like $1, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to grab these. Take it home, and it was the night before, so this was Friday night. Saturday morning, I get up, got to make a quick breakfast for the kids and my wife or whatever. We had a billion things going on. So I made little cornbread sandwiches. We had some sliced turkey, some cold cuts. So I just sliced that little loaf in half, and it was a little day old, so you pop it in the microwave to freshen it up a bit. I put a little bit of little turkey on there and just a little slice of cheese and melted that cheese. And it was a little turkey and cheese cornbread sandwich.
So, you said pop it in the microwave. I was thinking slice it in half, maybe flatten the top a little bit, and then just toast it in a pan with a little butter.
I thought that could do it. I was
in a hurry,
though.
Probably that way, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would work if I had a little more time, and I like that crispness. One of the mistakes I made, though, the cornbread was actually too thick. Mm-hmm. So when I made the second round of them, like 10 minutes later, we weren't done. We're like, yeah, we need more of those. I added a little more turkey. Didn't need so much more cheese, but I needed more turkey, and it was awesome. Vegan lentil gumbo in the Instapot. Interesting. I'm going to go back and see this recipe. This is from Cotter Crunch, website Cotter Crunch. Well, Cotter Crunch is healthy, gluten-free recipes. Don't forget, if you're looking for recipes and things you can add to recipes that are gluten-free, check out our friends at Nostalgia Wild Rice. Just go to SpoonyWildRice.com. It's SpoonyWildRice.com. It's this wild rice that is naturally gluten-free. It's also cholesterol-free, almost a complete protein by itself. It's got trace minerals and vitamins, but it's more of a seed than a rice, than a grain. So think more in the line of a quinoa as far as the healthiness goes, something like that, or the ancient grains. And it's awesome. It tastes great. But the fact that it's gluten-free, you can even get the wild rice flours and products made from it. So you're going to be good to go there. And it's awesome. It's SpoonyWildRice.com. SpoonyWildRice.com. Yes, they have jellies and jams and syrups. It's edible memories from the Northwoods of Minnesota. But they've also got the wild rice soup mixes and pan breads. It's amazing. I would think a lot of people from northern Minnesota, maybe even parts of Wisconsin or that, they know this rice. But a lot of Americans aren't familiar with it. SpoonyWildRice.com. So from Cotter Crunch, snappy Instapot lentil vegan gumbo. Let's check if they're doing it right.
Is that Gumbin Vigo or vegan gumbo?
Vegan gumbo, vegan gumbo. Here we go. Let's see if they have it in here. In order to truly be gumbo, I think they failed. Gumbo technically is supposed to have okra.
One ingredient, okra.
Right. And I'm seeing the list here. Yeah, I don't see it. Ingredients: olive oil, minced garlic, pepper, onion, celery, thyme, oregano, Cajun spices, cayenne, vegetable broth. Oh, nope, there it is. Okay. It listed second. It was frozen chopped okra.
Man, too bad you almost had them. So here's
to call him out.
Here's a tip though when using frozen okra. A lot of people don't like the sliminess of the okra.
Right.
So if you lay that out on a baking sheet, let it defrost a little bit, and then pop it in the oven for 10 minutes, 325 or something, just to kind of draw some of that liquid out and kind of it toasts it up a bit.
Oh.
It's not as slimy when you put it in the.
What other applications? I've seen deep fried okra.
Pickled okra is my favorite.
I've never had pickled okra.
Pickled is the least slimy because it something about the hot vinegar does something to, I don't know what it does to whatever causes that slimy, sticky. But I like it raw. I've eaten okra raw. Probably my favorite preparation is okra and tomatoes. So stewed okra and tomatoes.
Oh.
You slice the okra into 1-inch rounds, throw it in the pan, add a little bit of onion, some garlic, saute that up, and then just add stewed tomatoes, or you can put in diced tomatoes. And is it Pomi? P-O-M-I, I think it's a brand. They make that tomato. It's just tomato sauce. It's just plain tomato puree sauce. It's not the puree, but it's not really
I'm
seasoned.
wondering some sort
but you
of
add that in and put your own Italian seasoning in there. It's delicious.
Well, and you mentioned the pickled. I'm wondering some sort of okra relish or tapenade.
Oh, that sounds good.
Right?
Yeah, that would be easy too. You just kind of rough chop it in the little,
that would be incredible. Let's see. Back to the Instapot split pea soup. You can't go wrong with split pea soup. And what I love about all these Instapots, we're at that time of the year. You just want that warm, stick to the ribs, thick, hearty soups and Instapot type stuff. Split pea soup is fantastic. This is almost a forgotten food. Chef Patrick and I have been working on this concept of forgotten foods that used to have more popularity, whether it's restaurants drove it or chefs or maybe your mom, grandparents, whatever, that have gone out of style that are fantastic. A lot of them kind of upscale. But split pea soup is, unless you're probably like at a Whole Foods or something, they're offering their little packaged soups, it's gone. You don't see it.
No, and that's unfortunate. It's such an easy soup to make. It's the split peas broth, maybe some onion, and ham.
You buy the dried split peas.
Yes.
And then how do you make it? Because I've never made it. It's usually a chicken broth or something, right?
Yeah, it's basically stewed like you would make a dry bean. So you saute whatever you're going to saute, whether it's the
do you have to soak
onion
the
or whatever.
split peas first?
You don't actually. You can just throw it right in the pot. But it takes a lot of liquid. A lot of liquid.
Now, my mom would throw in a smoked ham hock, and that really flavored it up, and it was awesome. But something she didn't do when I was a kid, because it was more, cost saving too for her. But years later, I would do, or ask other people to do, because I've never made it from scratch, is add a little some ham chunks to it.
Yeah, so you have a little meat in there with it.
Which is really, that would be a great thing after the holidays if you've had one of those spiral hams.
Oh, yeah. Or even if you have one that's not spiral, one of the ones with the whole shank in there.
That's what a lot of people do, with the shank, right?
Mm-hmm. But then, dice up any leftover meat and throw it in right at the end.
Plus, if you throw that shank in somehow and cook it down, you get some of those pieces coming off. Probably get some marrow or something, too.
Ooh.
Split. Now I want split pea soup. Darn it.
I need a bib.
Smoky lentils and rice. Okay, that's more lentils and rice. That's awesome. Black bean soup. Main Street Cafe, Medina, Ohio. If you've listened to this program at all, and you're going to realize this more and more, I'm only discovering this about myself. What a foodie I am. I can come up with scenarios or restaurants where I've had great dishes for just about every dish. I've got a relationship or a memory somehow tied to just about everything. Every food out there. Black bean soup. How many people have memories of a black bean soup?
I do.
You're a chef, though.
Yeah, but it's black bean soup. It's
it has recipe. And okay, Main Street Cafe. I don't even know if they're there anymore. I used to work at a radio station in Cleveland, and we would do summer events. And a couple summers in a row, I'd go down there. I think it was Gary is the owner's name at the time. And great guy. And he would do all these outside events. And Gary and a lot of the clientele were a little more, and I hate to use the name, but kind of biker-esque. They'd have biker events there. But Main Street Cafe was in, and you hear cafe, it's thrown off. It was in an old building, I think in downtown Medina, Ohio. But the dining was a little more upscale. Certainly the quality of the food, and it was this weird hybrid. But Gary himself made the soups, the owner. I think it was Gary. And he made amazing soups. And I go in there one night, and he's like, try the black bean soup. And it was arguably the best soup I've ever had.
Really?
It was amazing. And it was black beans, and I don't know what else he flavored it with. There was some sort of meat that he flavored it with. Not chunks, but the flavor. And then would dollop a little sour cream in the middle on the top.
Oh,
and it was
that's the best.
Oh, it was great. And it was what I like about that too with black bean soup is when it swirls just a bit. So you could kind of control the balance between the black bean and the sour cream. And the soup itself was nice. It was a little kick to it with a little bit of pepper. It had a nice cracked pepper flavor to it though. Not just the kick, but the flavor. And then a little onion flavor. It was amazing.
Yeah, there's something about that cracked black pepper, like the aroma of cracked black pepper. It really hits you.
Yeah.
But it's not overpowering. It's really unique. It's almost.
And it was really good with black bean.
Oh yeah,
Think about how that brings it out.
It probably cuts away from the richness a little bit.
Mm-hmm. It was awesome. So yeah, Medina, Ohio, minestrone soup's a good one for your crock pot or Instapot. We'll get to some more of your Instapot meals, some ideas or some suggestions you have. We also have today's list, the best hot dogs by state, because I wanted to balance today the practical nature of I need those Instapot meals because it's cold and I just want to eat hearty. And then to balance that with something that we think of primarily as more of a summertime dish, those hot dogs, so we can dream of those warm summer breezes that are on their way just months from now. Stock's House of Flapjacks, Spoony.com. Back in a minute with more. Dating today with all the crazies out there has to be nuts.
Yes, it really would. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a place you could go to find people who think like you do?
Like me, like libertarians and conservatives?
Right?
There is. WeThePeople.dating.
Amazing. What a genius idea. This is a site that you can go to if you're single and you are looking for somebody who you know you're going to think the same way, as for from a political freedom standpoint. If you want to date the right person for you, you'll find them in one place. WeThePeople.dating.
Take the pain out of ordering your diabetic testing supplies with Diathrive. Diathrive ships the testing supplies you need directly to you when you need them. Best of all, with plans starting as low as $8 a month, Diathrive is probably going to cost you less than what you're paying today. Diathrive is so convinced that you'll love their service, they're offering your first month of supplies free. Simply type the code DOC, D-O-C, at checkout. Diathrive.com. That's D-I-A, thrive.com.
It looks like you're losing.
I am.
Are you losing weight?
I am losing. I've lost about 10 pounds.
How are you doing it?
Funny name, but I've done it with Riduzone, RIDUzone.com, and the stuff works. It's, you get into all that, the molecule this and the found in that. All I can tell you is it makes you feel full, and it keeps your mind off of wanting to overeat.
And also boosts your metabolism,
Yes,
so you're
it does.
burning more.
Yeah, it does.
Try it today. It's going to work for you like it's worked for Brad and countless other people. Riduzone.com, RIDUzone.com.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American-made and serve those who serve us. Our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual veterans and firefighters in need nationwide. Check out NeverForgottenApparel.com. Use promo code MATT, M-A-T-T, and get 15% off your purchase.
Hey there, it's Doc Thompson and Doc's House of Flapjacks at thisspoony.com. All right, we're still on the cold winter Instapot type foods, things that are going to help you kind of make it through this cold. It's not even that cold where I am. I'm in Fort Worth, Texas, and it's so odd to me. Maybe it's just an age thing. Maybe I have a thyroid problem. I don't know what it is, but I cannot take cold anymore at all. If it gets into the low 60s, I'm like, so cold. And it's been particularly cold, unseasonably cold here and in Bentonville, Arkansas, where I live the last couple of days, down into the high 20s and low 30s. It's just not good. Some other Instapot favorites. This is, I guess, kind of a forgotten food. You still see it around at Italian restaurants and stuff, but probably forgotten in most homes, and that's minestrone soup. Minestrone soup is good. Also, wedding soup. Good wedding soup is fantastic. Red beans and rice, an amazing food. And one of those things, this is from budgetbites.com.
Red beans and rice is Arguably one of my favorite foods.
Here's the thing, though, with red beans and rice, and you tell me if I'm wrong. I have had, and the first time I had red beans and rice, it was from a Puerto Rican family that grew up in my hometown, Geneva, Ohio, and they did it right. They knew what they were doing. So there was some pork in there, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Then I had it a couple times after that, and it was good but not great, and it just didn't have enough flavor. The flavors are subtle, but they got to be there. You got to have some sort of, kick to it, or, a little bit of meat in it. Am I right about that? Is it ham hockey, same thing?
Well,
Is that what you do?
so typically, the version I really like the best comes out of New Orleans or that area, and they'll do sausage in there.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and
there's like an andouille?
Andouille, some people, boudin I've had in there, but andouille is typical. Okay. Nice and spicy.
And their suggestion from Budget Bites is the sausage too.
Yeah, so you cook the red beans and the sausage together. And I like links of andouille. Don't slice it because if you slice it into rounds, it gets kind of dry or falls apart sometimes.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So you cook the whole link in there, and then you serve one link with the beans and the rice on the rice on the side.
You just kind of serve it out. That's a good application, right?
It's actually better the second
presentation.
day. So much better the second day.
Baked beans in the Instapot. Okay. A lot of times, you grew up in Middle America in the 1970s. You had baked beans and Franks, right? Franks and beans. You had those.
Franks and beans.
Franks and beans. That's okay. Again, a more simple dish, but relatively healthy and cheap. Depends on the Franks you use. Well, I guess in the beans too. Instapot. That's an easy one, right? Okay. We think of it as being that backyard barbecue food, but how about that as a winter kind of stand in defiance of winter foods? You do that for a meal or for a week, right?
Yeah, I mean, so we think a lot of times we think of baked beans as a more sweet dish.
Because you had that barbecue sauce.
Yeah, barbecue and a little more brown sugar than normal and make it a side dish. Just take some of that out and add in a little more onion, maybe some green bell peppers, a few other savory items like that. Yeah, maybe a little celery. And now it's more like a pot of beans instead of...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hummus, cook that in the Instapot. That's interesting. Italian chickpea stew with pesto. I have not had a lot of chickpeas in soups and stuff like that. Most of the application I've had for chickpeas is hummus, right? I mean, or hummus. Let's see here. I have no idea what this even is. Kale chana masala. CHANA.
So masala is a MASALA.
Mm-hmm.
That's an Indian style of cooking. Like chicken masala.
Yeah, kale, KALE, and chana, CHANA. And it looks like a split, like a chickpea type soup.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's chana. It's got to be a type of stew or soup. Yeah.
Healthy, awesome. Yeah, it's curry. That's good. I've shared a little bit of this before. My mother-in-law from Korea makes think of an American stew, that thick, brothy type stuff with the stew.
I was wrong. Chana means chickpea.
Oh, okay. I was going to say it looked like chickpea. She makes a stew. So what do you even call that? The broth, the thick part of the stew, the part that's not vegetable. The broth, is that just thick?
Mm-hmm. The gravy.
She does that with a yellow curry, so it almost turns like green. And same type of meat, whatever. Other than the curry, it's pretty American stew-esque. And then ladles that over rice, and it is such a wonderful wintertime
Do you like curry stews and things like that?
I do.
So in
Depends
Japan,
on what they are. Yeah.
Every train station has a curry, like an iconic curry. The big ones in the major cities has a curry shop, and they'll serve 3 types of curries. They have like a red hot curry, like a brown Japanese curry, and then a green curry. But the brown Japanese curry is almost like a gravy, like you're talking about, like a stew gravy, but it's got the curry flavor. Mm-hmm. The difference is in Japan, they grate apples and they add it into that curry to kind of add some depth and richness. It is unbelievable.
That sounds great. Here's one that you wouldn't think of, or I wouldn't think of an Instapot meal, but at least part of it is shepherd's pie. This is from a vegan perspective too. But the inside you could cook down. You don't have to. I mean, that's not how it's traditionally made, but...
Yeah, I mean, you could... so what are they using as the base instead of meat?
That's a good question. I'm going to click on it. Looks like lentils, dried lentils. That's odd.
You could make a traditional one in the
same thing.
Yeah, you just basically brown the beef and the onion.
You could also let's say you did a pulled beef or something one night, whatever's left over, then you could bake that into a shepherd's pie, right?
Absolutely. Oh, do you like ossobuco?
Yeah, that's what is that? That's
veal shank.
Yeah.
Oh man, that cross cut with just a little bit of. So you have the open ends with a little bit of marrow. It's not really showing, but you can see it in there. But when you cook that down, you have all that meat left over. Recently in the restaurants, we'd have extra left over, and so we take Texas toast and we'd shred that beef up, or the shank, and we'd mix that in with the sauce we had from the night before, and use that as the base for an eggs Benedict, right? But so you have the Texas toast, really toasted in butter, that on top, and then a poached egg and a hollandaise sauce. Ooh.
So speaking of ossobuco, excuse me, I got a story about anything like that. My wife and I go out to dinner, and I'm pretty sure I've told Chef Patrick this story, and as a restaurateur, he'll appreciate this and realize the failure right off. My wife invites this other couple a couple years ago out to dinner. She goes, I saw this little bistro, French style, out on this like country road in this old farmhouse, and it's supposed to be fantastic. So we go there, this other couple, and it was really kind of quaint inside. Love it. And we sit down and we're looking at all the stuff. And
I know
everything
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, we're fantastic food. Well, the price point for most of the dishes was 20 some bucks, 24, 25 for the entree. Okay, night out. That's not crazy. The highest priced one, and I think it might have been some sort of meat steaky thing, was around 28, 30 somewhere. So we go there, and the waitress comes over, and she's like, well, let me tell you about specials. And it was ossobuco with scallops on the side. So you got the shank, as well as, 3-4 scallops maybe. It wasn't even like a full, let's say 4. And I was like, that sounds awesome. I'll have that. Now, I didn't think to ask the price, so a bit of this is my fault. But she didn't offer the price. And in my mind, I'm thinking if it's a special, it's going to be competitive with the, right? I mean,
maybe a couple dollars more because it's a special. But
right. And often if it's not, that was big because it was both the shank and the whatever, maybe a couple dollars more.
Yeah,
sometimes
maybe
it'll be even
$5,
less.
maybe $6 more.
So $35, I wouldn't have balked at it. Well, the husband of the other couple goes, you're right, Doc. I'm having that too. My wife and his wife got something similar priced on the menu. He and I both had a couple of cocktails. He's a big Manhattan drinker, and so am I. So he ordered a Manhattan. I got a Manhattan. We had 2 more. And then my wife just had a soft drink. So did his wife, because they were driving, and we split a dessert between the 4 of us. We get the bill, and it goes to the couple we were with. His wife, she grabs it first, and she looks at it, and her eyes are clicking. Like I can hear them click, 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 as she's looking at the price.
She's doing the math.
Right. She's like click, 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 like snapping her eye up and down. And I'm like, and she's looking around. Now, we had told the waitress to split the check. Just split it even. We got about the same thing, split it evenly. And she did. She put 2 down. But the price of what this wife of the couple we were with was what it should have been for all of us. And she's trying to process it. And I look, and then we realize, well, it was about $180 for the 2 of us, for my wife and I. And that was theirs as well.
They're proud of their ossobuco.
Right. And I'm trying to figure this out. I'm going, looking at it, the special was $60.
I remember the place. They're very famous for their mussels.
Oh, are they? And Patrick, it's a shame because it was really good food. The service, the entire thing was. But my wife, once she's pissed at a place, it's over. You're dead to me, right? And she felt kind of slickered on this. And it's a shame they did themselves a disservice. It was $60. It was more than double the price of the average entree. And then the Manhattans were $20 each. My portion of the meal was $100. Oh my gosh, it was crazy.
Well, so this is a fail in the sense that the server should have just informed you at that time, and our special is this, and this. It's $60.
Right.
That's all.
That's it.
You would have gotten over the drinks.
Yeah, I probably would. You
probably would have. Because that's an extra $25 or $40 on top of what you expected to pay. Not even. If they're $20 each, they would have been $14 or $15 more.
I think the drinks pissed me off more. And here's why. I don't know if they only serve top shelf. Often if you order something, they upsell you, but they always say is such and such, and they give you a brand. they have well drinks or lower priced.
The standard pour.
Standard
the
pour,
stuff.
whatever. And they'll say that. But if you'll notice, and this is a tip for you, if a waiter or waitress says, is such and such okay, that's their way around saying the top shelf stuff, and it costs you more or whatever, and you may not know. And it's a little disingenuous or not honest, but okay, fine. She didn't say that. She just came out. And what ticked me off is within a couple of months prior to that, I had Manhattans in Manhattan, and they were $16. I was at and this was 20, okay, in Arkansas. And I go again, Manhattan's at the Royale, Hotel Royale, just a block off of 6th Avenue in Midtown Manhattan at a wonderful, beautiful bar where the bartenders have to invent their own drinks. I mean, they take this stuff seriously, right? And it was a $16 Manhattan. It was 20 at the place in Arkansas, and that was the part I was like, come on, man.
So can I go to that bar and get a DT?
Right.
Can I get a DT, please?
So my wife is like, what is the... They were looking at the price, and they were like, son of a gun. So that's my Osambuco story. It has left my wife with a bad taste in her mouth that she was not happy with all of that.
So you're saying don't ever make Osambuco if I invite you for dinner?
No, it's fine. As long as you aren't charging me $60 for it, because that's going to be trouble. That's where it really gets into trouble there. Wow. Yeah, right. Where's my hot dogs? Got to find the hot dog story. So yeah, I was trying to think though. Wife and I going out to dinner, if we know it's going to be a very upscale place and it's $200, okay. But when you don't see it coming, yeah, that's a little trouble.
And the place you're talking about, which is nice, but it's an unassuming little. It was like a log cabin looking place on the side of the road.
Yeah, I mean it's
nice. It's quaint.
Have you eaten there, by the way?
I have. I've had the mussels.
How were the mussels?
The mussels were not as good as people said they were.
Okay.
They were very flavorful. The mussels themselves. Actually, we started selling them mussels after that from our seafood market. That's why.
Were you judging them based on the price point and everything though?
No, at that point, people had said it was one of the better restaurants in town, so I just went to taste the food.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Everything else looked great, though.
This was sensational. The shank it had the crispy pieces along the edges there and juicy on the inside. It was honestly an amazing meal. And the scallops actually done well. Simple. Looked like they had just a little sauteing in the pan, right? And not overcooked. Salt, pepper, garlic. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, but and when you don't, the price can be shocking. I mean, it's surprising that they didn't tell you that because they have good service there.
The waitress, yeah, she seemed to have, if you notice, and I don't know if this is why, but there are people in life, and sometimes maybe people are trying to create an image where it was kind of an uber casual. So you'll have the mussels then, just kind of a fine, no notepad trying to do his upscale. And you'll have the mussels.
Or you have the other end of the spectrum. One of my former employees up there who has a notepad and it takes 4 days to write your order. I don't know if you remember your experience with that one. So here's the story. I'll tell you real quick. Doc calls me. He goes, he texts me, I'm eating at such and such restaurant. We have a server. She's painfully slow. And I text back, is her name such and such?
Right. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, you know her. Oh my gosh, painfully slow. Nice, wonderful lady. Got a lot of stuff right.
Sweetest person in the world, by the way.
Just slow.
And she'd been there for almost 20 years.
Wow.
Bless her.
Have you ever been to a place where, and you've worked at so many places, where you've got the waiter or waitress who doesn't use a notepad and it's a really big party and they don't miss? I was at a place in Vegas and it was a party of 20 to 25 people. It was a whole group of us in for something. And the waiter was like, what do you have, sir? Okay, ma'am. Okay, sir. And he got 3 people in, and I'm like, he's not writing it down. He's not writing it down. Oh, my gosh.
Bets on how many he gets wrong.
He didn't miss a thing and was one of the best waiters. Casual, came over, salt, pepper.
There's a guy I worked with in San Diego named Eric Martel, and he never missed a beat. Probably one of the best servers I've ever worked with, if not the best.
I love really good servers who appreciate. You know what the sad thing is, and I saw this. Did I send you the video of Jobs of the Future? Jobs of the Future today.
I don't think so.
There's this big push or question about AI and automation and where the world is going. And Patrick and I are fans of business, so we study and pay attention. It's just fascinating to me. And there's this big scare right now, AI and automation is going to take jobs. Well, the truth is that's always been a concern, and there are always jobs that go away and always ones that come up. And the guy argued, his name is John Tamny. He's an author, and I'm trying to think where he writes for now. But End of Work is the book from last summer, The End of Work. And he gave this video presentation, almost like a TED Talk, but it wasn't a TED Talk, on this book. And, it was from, what's the online university? Not Auburn University? Ashland.
There's a bunch of them, but anyway.
Ashford,
okay.
Excuse me. And he talked about what this means with automation is you'll be able to spend more time on being creative. That jobs of the past or of the future will be jobs that were not jobs of the past. He talked about how being a chef, because there weren't chefs as careers in the 1940s and 50s. He said people cooked. He said, but most people that cooked for a living, it was like, oh.
Yes,
most people. Right, if you said, yeah, I mean, there were exceptions to the rule, but most people, if you're like, hey, so you were going to school for that law degree, what are you doing? I'm cooking now. Oh, it didn't work out for you, huh? You failed the bar, so you're cooking But now it's a career, and there's a lot that he argues about this. This sounds crazy, but I maintain that a good server is awesome. It's not somebody who gets your order right and makes sure your cup is filled. Somebody who is a performer on some level. They're making all the problems of the world go away as they step up to your table. How are you? They don't underplay it. They don't overplay it. They're not there too long, but they're there enough. It's like a great host when you're at their party where they just make all the stress go away.
It's kind of like the gatekeeper, a really talented, admin at the front desk,
Yep.
right? They're basically the swan that's gracefully going along the top of the pond and skimming the water, but underneath it's all feet and butt wiggling around.
Battle.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's a great. That's
so
a great analogy.
They're the grace that hides the chaos, right?
Right, and I look at that. You probably think about that when it comes to servers if you're at a fine dining experience because they don't seem as rushed. I mean, but really applied, think about different application, the greasy spoon with the little old lady server who has 15 tables with, she started her shift in 1941, right? And she's got the cigarette hanging with the ash, and she's got 2 coffee pots in her hand.
To catch up with that.
Right. And as she goes to the table to fill theirs because they request coffee, she hits 4 other tables on the way. She doesn't screw up which is decaf and which is regular.
Well, she's picking up 2 checks, dropping off the change for another.
Yeah, and not bothered at all. How you doing, sweetheart? What can I get you? Okay, not as much smoking the rest of that's now, but I have that image from when I was a kid, right? That's
Absolutely.
And you love it. Just like you said, unfazed, but she makes that experience great. She calls you sugar. She calls you honey. She rests her hand on your shoulder, and I'll take care of that for you. Right? I mean, that's what it is. That's a bit of an art form. I would love to see that in the future be something that I've said this before. I don't care what your job is, and I am absolutely passionate about this. I don't care what your job is, how lowly it is, how, unimpressive it is. If you do it well and you're passionate about it, man, do I love you. I could sit and watch people sweep a floor, serve to, and I just look at them and I go, man, I'm impressed by them.
Here's something I hear people all the time. People say, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "Well, I'm a chef, right? I'm on the radio," and they're like, "Oh, wow." I said, "So what do you do?" "Well, I'm just a cook." Man, I keep telling them, no, there's no just in this world. Without a cook, there can't be any food on the table. Without a cook, there's no chef. Without a cook, there's no restaurant. Without a cook, without you cooking, there's no food on your table or money in your family's bank account. So
think of that.
there is never just
You're
anything.
Right. No, exactly.
Never.
We got to stop this. I mean, some of it takes more skill, some of it more education. That's fine.
And maybe it's not your proudest moment because you aspire to be something else. But you know what? Be proud of what you do.
Contributing, passion for it. I mean, Pat, think about that line chef that's just grilling the same sandwiches and grilled whatever over and over, and that's what they're thinking. They're like, I'm just a line cook in a cafeteria type, whatever. And
put the prettiest damn sandwich on the plate that anyone's ever seen, and say, you know what, that's my work.
And how many you don't know how many times a person comes in, sits down, they eat that, and they're like, this is great today. And for that moment, you made their moment. Their life's a little bit better. But we get used to it. You come home, you smell like French fries or whatever. It doesn't seem
deep
impressive.
Fryer or fish. No. But that's part of those jobs where you don't have a lot of customer interaction.
You're right. I mean, you're right. Thank you.
Because I worked in factory. I worked at Train Manufacturing in Pueblo, Colorado. Let me tell you, it's not glamorous. And at the end of the day, you're like, okay, another shift of that. I guess I'll go back to cooking tonight.
Nope.
It's there's nothing wrong with it. Be proud of what you do. Get good at it. Yep.
All right, some of the best hot dogs in the country. Ready? By state, Alabama, Hot Diggity Dogs. It's a local favorite. They say Winky Dinky Dog is mustard, onions, and pimento cheese. Ooh, pimento. That's an interesting application. In, let's see here, Alaska, the International House of Dogs. Reindeer Polish sausage and cilantro fries. Wow! That's crazy good.
For some reason I thought Sled Dog was going to play in, but that actually sounds really good.
The cilantro, by the way, I am a nut for cilantro recently.
You either love it or hate it.
It's just grown on me like crazy. So as part of the Whole30 diet, they have this kind of a drizzle or a topping, a sauce you can make out of cilantro. And you start with a mayonnaise that's Whole30, which most mayonnaise should be anyways. Traditional mayonnaise didn't have any additives and stuff. It was pretty much eggs and oil and then spices. But so you take the mayonnaise and you add a little bit of lime juice and a ton of chopped up cilantro. And it is awesome. You almost can't get enough cilantro. Let's see here. Arizona, the Wild Dogs, they say. Onion rings and pudding for dessert, but they're just basically good dogs. Nothing. Looks like they have a good topping on theirs too. Arkansas, the original Scoop Dog. They say go there and definitely try the chocolate shake is going to be something that stands out. California, Happy Dog hot dogs. Beer mustard. Add beer mustard for the gourmet hot dogs. That sounds like a nice little. Colorado, Harley's Hot Dog Revolution. Hot dog with roast beef, pickles, sport peppers, and horseradish. Man, that's big. I love these applications. Riley's Hot Dog and Burger Gourmet in Connecticut. They say recommend, the staff recommends and fans recommend the Salty Balls. Well, I recommend it too. Brined baby potatoes served with sour cream and scallions. Think about how simple that dish is. Brined sour cream and scallions. Wow, that's interesting. Delaware, the New York style or Chicago style, any style, they say it tastes great, and they have some funky toppings on it. Now, it's the Top Dog Grill, by the way, in Delaware. In Florida, the Sweet Dogs. I didn't realize there were this many hot dog joints left around. We must be in the middle of a hot dog revolution. Well, every so often these things come up, like the hamburger revolution. All the different specialty hamburger shops and sandwich shops had their day. Maybe we're in the hot dog revolution. This is in Miami. Sweet Dogs. Says it's based off of Celebrate the Dolphins with their namesake dog, the Dolphin Dog. Ham, bacon, mozzarella cheese, pineapple, and papayas. Yep, that's a winner. That is a winner. In Georgia, Doggity Dog. This is Decatur. Grilled veggie dog for vegetarians. Excuse me, that's something that they say is unique. Porky's Kauai. This is Hawaii. A pineapple pork sausage with pineapple relish, sweet chili barbecue sauce. Man, these are funky and awesome. Well, who would have thought they'd have this much variety? In Idaho, Franco's Doghouse. This is themed like kind of a dog theme, and it looks like the dogs are going to be pretty basic toppings, but they're putting it at the top of their list. Let's see. In Illinois, Firehouse Dogs. Chicago-style dog with their fresh-cut fries. How come more people don't do fresh-cut fries? Seriously, they're so awesome. And if you are going to use a packaged fry, because I mean, like McDonald's and those, they're fine. The frozen ones, right? But how many fries do you get that are just meh? Either use top of the line frozen or fresh cut and be done with it. Why do we get mediocre fries? Indiana, Garcia's Hot Dog. This is in Indianapolis. Oh, this is Hot Dog Cart. They say try the bacon dog. This looks like cheese, bacon, and caramelized onions. Damn, that looks good. In Iowa, Bob's Drive-In looks like pulled meat. Loose meat on top of the hot dog. In Kansas, Leeway Franks. They top one of their dogs with smoked trout schmear, pickled veggies, red onions, and everything seasoning. In Kentucky, Lonnie's Best Taste of Chicago. Fresh meats, perfectly crafted Chicago dogs. And when you see it, one of the ones that they feature on their menu in the pictures of the place and on their website is kind of like a brown or spicy mustard, onions. What are the little peppers they put on those, like the pickled
Jalapenos or
peppers?
pepperoncinis?
Yeah, no, it must be like the jalapenos, but those are all pickled. And then
Yeah, pickled jalapenos.
yeah, and then cucumbers on it with spices. That looks awesome too. Louisiana, Dat Dog. That's what they call it. Dat Dog has a wide variety of sausages, hot dogs, and brats. So they're going bigger with everything. And then the WTF fries. And at first glance, and I don't see a list of it, it's fries loaded with all kinds of toppings, tomatoes and onions and whatever, and cheese on it. It's almost like a kind of a nachos, but it looks like they also have sour cream, guacamole, and some red sauces. I don't know if it's ketchup or what, but it looks awesome. That's Dat Dog in Louisiana. Maine, Red's Eats. See what they have there that's special. Lobster roll, you can get that, but it looks like they also do a lobster dog. That seems pretty good. In Maryland, it's the Hout Dog Cart. Chef's Dog, updated every day or so they have something special to try always. That's awesome. We got a bunch more hot dogs to get to. We'll get to the rest of them coming up tomorrow on Doc's House of Flapjacks. Make sure to follow us on social media if you would. Share it with your friends. We're going to continue to grow this platform. And if you would like a show on this platform, by all means, contact us via Spoony.com, and we'll talk about that. We are brokering time, and we're always looking for content. Spoony.com. Chef Patrick Mosher coming up next.
This is the only 24-hour take-anywhere platform dedicated to food and fun. We're Spoony.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Val Dior. Well, the partial government shutdown is said to be delaying airline travelers. Rita Foley reports.
The TSA says no-shows among airport screeners soared this morning across the nation. It was taking more than an hour for passengers to get through domestic checkpoints at the airport in Atlanta, the world's busiest, after security screeners missed paychecks on Friday for the first time because of the partial government shutdown.
And weather is adding to those delays as well. Across the mid-Atlantic, they're cleaning up following a powerful winter storm that brought snow and ice to the region after pummeling the Midwest. National Weather Service meteorologist Jim Hayes says the nation's capital hit the snow jackpot.
Looks like the band of heaviest snow was right through northern Virginia, the district, into portions of eastern Maryland.
The snowstorm brought with it an icy mix that knocked out power to hundreds of thousands of utility customers, canceled flights, and contributed to hundreds of car crashes. Also at townhall.com, Trump administration rules allowing more employers to opt out of providing women with no-cost birth control will take effect in most parts of the U.S.
A federal judge blocked the rules from being implemented in 13 states and Washington, D.C., while a lawsuit against them, instigated by California, moves forward. The plaintiffs argued the changes would force women to turn to state-funded programs for birth control and lead to unintended pregnancies. The Justice Department says the rules protect a small group of objectors from violating their beliefs. Ron DeRockster reporting.
Meanwhile, President Trump right now addressing the American Farm Bureau Federation's 100th annual convention in New Orleans. And he'll also welcome the college football champion Clemson Tigers at the White House later today. On Wall Street, everything in the red. The Dow down 86 to 23,909. NASDAQ down 48. S&P down 12 now. For more details, townhall.com.
Dating today with all the crazies out there has to be nuts.
Yes, it really would. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a place you could go to find people who think like you do?
Like me, like libertarians and conservatives?
Right?
There is. WeThePeople.dating.
Amazing. What a genius idea. This is a site that you can go to if you're single and you are looking for somebody who you know you're going to think the same way, as for from a political freedom standpoint. If you want to date the right person for you, you'll find them in one place. WeThePeople.dating.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American made and serve those who serve us, our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual veterans and firefighters in need nationwide. Check out neverforgottenapparel.com, use promo code DOC, and get 15% off your purchase. That's neverforgottenapparel.com.
All things food service, recipes, and restaurants. Spoony.
Hey folks, this is Chef Patrick Mosher, better known as the Food Biz Pro, here on Spoony Radio. We have shows regarding food, food culture, the restaurant business, consulting services for businesses, startups of all sorts, not just the restaurant industry. We talk about travel, food destinations. It's a lot of food, fun, and family. Mike from the World Food Championships will be coming on, giving us a weekly update on Saturday afternoons on what's new in the world of food sport. Yes, folks, I said food sport. No, it's not where competitors walk into Kitchen Stadium and beat each other to death with a limp fish. It's where you have 2,000 events which lead to the World Food Championships. Join us for the World Food Championship updates every week. Join us on Spoony on the Dash Radio Network, 24/7 Food Talk Radio.
We're not solving all the world's problems, but we're bringing people to the table. Spoony, food and fun.
Happy Monday! You know, I kind of I sound like a Frosty the Snowman there. Happy birthday! Good Monday afternoon, Spoony listener. Chef Patrick Mosher here. We're back. Doc's back in rare style again today. Yeah, I had to let him come back on the air. I told him last week I wanted all the glory for myself. The first week in our studio, he couldn't be on the air. All right, I gave in. Plus, I need his content. So Doc's House of Flapjacks brought up something at the end that is kind of near and dear to my heart, and that is interesting characters in the service industry. I'm going to open up the phone lines. Well, next week, everybody be out of town in Vegas. I'll have to do my show will be recorded. I'll still be here, but I want to open up the phone lines, and one day I want to have you think about the most interesting characters you've met in the food service industry. You know, whether it was the beautifully gruff waitress with a cigarette hanging out of her mouth, or I remember this cook. I don't know why this image always sticks in my head. There was a cook at a restaurant I went to a long time ago, and I swear it was a place called Bud's Diner where my father used to take me in Corinth, New York, or it's Corinth if you live there. It's about 50 miles north of Albany on the Hudson River, a beautiful, quaint little town, tiny, 7,000 people, I think, when I lived there as a child, but I remember this guy. I'm sure it wasn't Bud's Diner. Bud's was famous for hot dogs that they actually cooked on a griddle, a flat top, and then they were just beautifully crisp on the outside. And that and mustard was my favorite. But you know, if you put ketchup on it, it was tolerable. Anyway, I just remember this guy. I want to say they called him Cookie. I'm sure that came from a movie somewhere, and I heard it, and that's where that came from. But the guy's sitting there in his T-shirt and his apron, and he's leaning on a table like this, and they have what's called a soup burner, which is a low giant burner or a candy burner. The candy stove is what they call it too. It's a really high BTU burner that's used for cooking stocks and soups in restaurants, and I just remember him leaning against this table, kind of stirring this big pot of soup, and he had this cigarette in his mouth. And I kept watching the ashes burn back. He'd never take it out of his mouth and flip the ashes. And you don't need to write any comments about this. Well, actually, you can if they're funny. But I just remember watching the ashes until they were ready to fall, like wincing every time they fell, thinking they were going to fall in the pot of food. I don't even know what he was cooking. I didn't care what he was cooking. I was more interested in seeing what was going to happen. Now, today's health standards, the health departments in any city, in any county, in any state in the country wouldn't allow you to do that, at least that they're aware of. But I just remember that particular scene. Maybe that's what prompted me to go into this crazy business, maybe so I could up the level of service in the kitchen. But there are so many characters. So think about that. Think about those characters that you've met in the kitchen over the years. There's a guy I knew. So I was working in Aspen. Oh man, no, this is not what I was going to talk about today. But now that we're on this for a minute, Jeremiah Towers, famous chef, has a restaurant in California called Stars. Right, very famous restaurant, great chef. He's one of this group of chefs that grew up under Alice Waters at Chez Panisse, and were really trendsetters in the 70s and 80s, mostly through the 80s and 90s as well. And if you don't know who Alice Waters is, Chez Panisse was the first, what we'd call like a farm-to-table restaurant. It was the first hyper-local restaurant where everything they served was produced within like a 50-mile radius of the restaurant, or at the very furthest, maybe 100 miles, but it was all California. It was California cuisine, right? Everything came from California. And Chez Panisse is the epitome. That restaurant's still there, but the epitome of California cuisine. So anyway, he had this guy who was a fry cook in the kitchen, and he would put stuff in, and the fryer's hot. Typically, you have two fryers, two different temperatures. The fryer's like 350 degrees hot, and this guy, for some reason, refused to use a pair of tongs or a slotted spoon or anything to take the food out of the fryer. He'd reach in and he'd go, oh, and he'd pull it out with his fingers. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Just use a pair of tongs. No, it's okay. I got it. What in the world was that guy thinking? His fingers didn't blister though. They were really, he had just really thick skin on his fingers. But I mean, there are all these nut jobs that work in restaurants. And people say, why is that the case? Well, because no one else will take us. I was speaking to someone last week, and they had asked me about a certain characteristic or personality trait of some of the people in the kitchens. And for a lot of people, I'm fortunate I had a formal education as well as went to culinary school. But for a lot of people, it's their last bastion, right? Their last opportunity for employment. The industry employs a lot of people that were, criminals, felons that couldn't get a job elsewhere. And we're kind of like the island of misfit toys. That's the only way I can put it. We're a bunch of somehow broken yet diligent and dedicated people who have a passion for what we do, who really aren't allowed to apply it anywhere else. Anyway, that's it for today. I'm not going to go too far into that, but I was looking through some of the headlines, and I've been posting some fun stuff on Spoony's webpage at Spoony Radio on Facebook. Not on the webpage, on Spoony Radio at Facebook. And I came across something which is interesting. I need to see how these taste because I have not yet had them. But these are jalapeno peanut M&Ms. This is not a joke. They're peanut M&Ms with jalapeno flavor. Now, apparently there's a second one as well. The other one is, actually there are several. So there's one that's toffee peanut M&Ms, and then there's a coconut peanut M&Ms. Now, apparently you can vote, and whichever one wins is the new flavor. But I had a friend post, they responded to the post saying no. But actually, I think about this. Spice and chocolate go together well. Spice and peanut go together well. Peanut and chocolate go together well. So why wouldn't this be a win? I have to try them. I have to. I don't know if I'll like them, but I have to try them. Now the toffee, that's a no-brainer, right? Chocolate, toffee, and peanut. That's like there are several candy bars out there with that flavor profile. And then the coconut, it's Thai coconut. Sorry, Thai coconut. So Thai coconut peanut. I don't see why that wouldn't work. It's just coconut, peanut, and chocolate. I mean, that's kind of like if you take the chocolate out, it's just any other Thai dish, right? Coconut and peanut. I mean, any Thai curries traditionally, or Penang curry anyway. All right, so that stuff aside, if you haven't looked at the Spoony Facebook page lately, there are a few posts which I was, so if you're not aware, I do most of, but not all of the social media posting for Spoony Radio. Once in a while, Doc will throw something in, and, we like the funny memes, like, an older lady standing in the gym saying, this year I resolved to drink less and go to the gym, and she says I made it to the gym, and, she's drinking a martini. Well, I put up some more serious posts, and some interesting ones at that, and one of them that's gotten a lot of traction, I just posted it last night late, and I'm curious as to why it's gotten so much attention, although I appreciate it, is a Tennessee lawmaker wants to criminalize drinking fresh milk from your own cow. So think about that. They want to criminalize drinking fresh milk from your own cow. Now, this isn't the only stupid law out there like that. In Arizona, it's against the law to cut your own hair, which I'm sure you went back to the bartender / saloon owner who is also the barber shop owner. And back in the 1870s, he didn't want everybody cutting their own hair. So if you came to town, you had to pay him to cut your hair because he paid for the license. And I get that. I understand. Is it stupid? Yes, it's still stupid. You should be able to cut your own hair, especially if you own a Flowbee. I mean, what's the sense? Why wouldn't you? And if you can't cut your own, can't you just have someone else cut it for free? So, but this one is kind of interesting. As a child whose grandfather had dairy cattle, I drank raw milk all the time. I remember skimming the cream off, making butter, and I forget what it's called, but he had this glass globe in the corner where all the milk went up through these hoses into that, and you could see, I don't know why, I don't know if you could whether it was just to be sure that the milk was still flowing into the processing machinery, but for some reason it fascinated me. And I don't know why. So I haven't read the article, right? But I wonder why this got so much traction. For me, it's more about, look, if I own land, if I own cattle, if I own some other way of manufacturing food or drink for myself, then why shouldn't I be able to partake in the consumption of that food or drink for myself? If I'm not selling it, I don't think it would be an issue. I understand that they want homogenized milk on the market. I get that. Not a problem. I mean, if you need health standards for the public, and not that I agree with all of those health standards, pasteurizing milk, the homogenization process and pasteurizing is, it depletes a lot of the nutrients. Now, granted, we're kind of a funny species anyway. We're the only species that drinks milk from another species of animal, which in itself is kind of, interesting and kind of silly at that. But, why would they want to do this? Oh, let me look through this. It says proposed law in Tennessee would make it illegal to drink unpasteurized milk from your own cow, goat, or now they're saying goat or sheep as well. And it says Senator Richard Briggs, who's a medical doctor, wants to make it illegal to drink milk fresh from your own animal. It would, and it says, it says so any hooved animal, you cannot drink the milk from that. And it doesn't say why. It says raw milk is legal in some 43 states, according to realmilk.com, which tracks the legal status of raw milk in all 50 states. Okay, so it doesn't say. The proposed law is apparently triggered. Okay, here you go. So the proposed law was apparently triggered by an E. coli outbreak in Knox County. And in many of these cases, of course, that gives them a window to add some sort of bureaucratic legislation. But what it doesn't say is, if it's my own, again, so what are they going to, okay, let's go back to this. E. coli. So we had E. coli on romaine lettuce. E. coli can be found on any food, any plant that's grown on the ground, right? Comes from fecal matter. So does that mean if I grow lettuce then, and I get sick, are you going to just ban lettuce, ban everyone from eating lettuce that they grow in their own gardens? They can't consume it. What about carrots? What about corn? What about radishes? Are we just going to ban everything that you can raise on your own land that you can consume yourself, and say you can't eat it or drink it or share, you can't make it into something else, even butter? You can't consume it in any form if you grow it or produce it. I mean, that kind of sounds like they're opening that window. Now, I understand about raw milk. As a matter of fact, in Texas, I know of only one place, and that was a dear friend of mine, Helen Durham. Her husband was a very famous sportscaster, Jim Durham, actually the voice of the Bulls and the White Sox for a long time. they had a farmer, a dairy farmer, who sold raw milk at very special farmers markets only a few times a year in the Houston area, and that's the only raw milk I've ever been able to find here. Now, I understand why, because of the potential for outbreak, but that's selling the milk. If you are producing and consuming the milk yourself, then that's a risk that you should be able to be willing to take. And if you get ill, then you go to the hospital and you pay for that illness. That's not a public risk. But yeah, I'm curious. I'm going to do a little more research into this. I might write a letter and ask for a formal, something interesting and a formal explanation of why this specific case has, made him want to file this legislation. Anyway, I thought that was interesting that so many people have reacted to this. Keep the comments coming. That's really, really good. I like it. Anyway, I don't know if you watched the game yesterday. I know our partner here, Tom, was heartbroken because the Phillies didn't win. I'm really sorry. I'm not a huge Philly fan. It's mostly because I don't like the Philly fans. I like the Philadelphia Eagles. But, coming up, it looks like New Orleans is going to the Super Bowl. Yep, I'm not a New Orleans fan either, so I won't be watching the game. But if you are, best to your team. All right. Some of the I always look at the top food trends coming up for the next year, right? I think I've read them from Whole Foods, but I started looking for other lists. I've been seeing a lot of buzzwords and headlines talking about CBDs and cannabis and biohacking and Uber convenience. And so I started looking for these other alternative lists for top trends for 2019. And the first one I came across was from the Food Channel. And the Food Channel has, they have a lot of shows. Like they have 90 Seconds in the Kitchen, Bar Therapy, which I think is a great show, by the way, Bar Therapy. Why didn't I think of that? Chat and Dish, Cook Like a Champion, Creativity in the Kitchen. They have a bunch. Like Faces of Italy is a good one. But so they have their top food trends for 2019. And the way they do this, they could conduct actually they hire a company called Culture Waves. They're a behavioral science company. And so they did the poll for them, and they identified a bunch of significant behavioral aspects, which then they kind of, they take that, modify the data, and look at the future trends. So the first one is called, they said is a frozen comeback, which is frozen foods. They believe that frozen food aisles are going to be one of the most popular aisles again in 2019. Now, if you'll notice, over the last 15 or 20 years, we've shied away from frozen foods because it seemed to be, we went the route of, the manufacturers did anyway, making frozen foods the highly processed foods of the day-to-day consumption that we have. Instead of, as it used to be, freezing food was a way initially to preserve food. It was a way, if you had an extra large crop of something, you froze it and you put it in a bag and you served it that way. Now, I think that you're going to find a lot more variety. And millennials also don't like to cook as much. They don't like to spend the time cooking. They'd rather do something interactive as a party that's considered cooking, like raclette or shabu shabu, or something like a teppanyaki, where you grill on your table at home, or like Korean barbecue or Japanese style barbecue. That's more of the cooking that millennials and Gen Z like as well. So this kind of fresh frozen is what they're turning to. And by fresh frozen, we mean foods that are frozen extremely quickly. Okay, that's not really what it means exactly, but these foods are frozen very quickly so that you lose as little or very little of the nutritional value that would have been in the food had they not frozen it. You see this a lot with like IQF or individually quick frozen products. I used to do some product development in Ecuador. And my business partner at that time, Barry Furaseth, he's the owner of Blue Fresh Fish Marketplace in Bentonville, Arkansas. He's also a guru when it comes to seafood and fish, whether fresh or frozen. He's been my mentor for many years and former business partner. We used to do, we found these mangoes. And these mangoes were number 2 mangoes, which meant they couldn't be used for export. They had blemishes on the outside, basically, or they were bruised somehow, or just the skin didn't look beautiful. So they were never meant for export. They would be one of 2 things. They'd be consumed in the local market. They'd be used as feed or fodder, so, feed somewhere. Or number 3, they would turn them into purees. So there are some companies down there, a lot of juice bases and concentrates are made in Ecuador. So we said, look, you have a commodity here which is not worth a ton of money on the open market. So why don't you? We found processing machinery for this particular farmer. It skinned the mango, and then it halved it, and then people would dice it up, and then it ran it through what's an IQF tunnel, and this tunnel is basically a large conveyor. Oh, there we go. Malfunction there on the set. This tunnel sprays a very fine mist of water, just water. On the outside of the mango, and it goes through this tunnel. It's a very, very, very cold tunnel, and by the time it gets out the other side, it's frozen solid, pretty much. And then they roll these they pull these tray, or the food that comes out the other end, like these 1-inch pieces of mango, are put onto trays, and then they're rolled into a deep freeze where they set for like another 24 hours to freeze fully. But that preserves a lot of the nutrition. And if you'll notice, green beans, if you buy frozen green beans, are very good. I used green beans, frozen corn. I love the frozen, the organic frozen corn. That's really good. I mean, I use it all the time. I put it in my soups, and sometimes I just saute it with onion or tomatoes or something like that, make stewed corn and tomatoes. But I think that's going to be a place you're going to look for that, and expect to see a lot of different flavors as far as ethnic foods, and a lot more desserts that are going to be coming out of that area. So probiotics, this is number 2 on their list, probiotics. I agree with the probiotics. All right. Everybody knows that gut health is very important, that we don't have a very good, kind of biosome, this environment for the probiotics, these healthy organisms to live in our gut, So, people take probiotics all the time. The thing is, I think what's even more important about it are prebiotics, right? So not necessarily eating or taking these capsules, which have these probiotics, these living organisms in them, but creating an environment and creating a healthy environment, and also eating the proper food source for these organisms to stay healthy and work in the gut the way they're supposed to. So I think prebiotics more so than probiotics. Probiotics is all, something we've seen for a long time. Look more for prebiotics, right? Accessible ethnic food. Okay, for a long time we saw pretty much just Mexican and Asian food. That was our ethnic variety in this country. And the last 20 years you've seen an explosion in Indian restaurants, Thai restaurants. I see everything now from, I saw a Kazakhstan restaurant the other day, and I'm not sure where that came from, but I'd like to try it. I mean, I think it's just a sign that we are expanding our palates in this country. And it's also a sign that these eclectic, or what we thought was eclectic ethnic flavors, are no longer available just to those in big cities, in inner cities within those big areas. But you can find them now in the outskirts of places like Dallas, Fort Worth, or even in smaller towns. I'm always surprised at what I find. It's very interesting. So I think within that vein, though, you're going to see a lot of things like Moroccan food is going to catch hold. Again, these earthy, really kind of herbaceous flavors and cooking methods and center of the plate menu items from Central Africa, I think Northern Africa, the Middle East, and again the Stan countries, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, those areas like that. I think that's going to be a big one. Now, for those of you that don't know it, I do participate in the green business. So I've been an advocate for CBDs for a long time, and if you don't know what CBDs are, they're a bunch of components in the cannabis plant. And when I say cannabis, we're not just talking about marijuana. We're talking about hemp as well. And so hemp, for a long time, was one of the main crops, the main cash crops in the United States. And as a matter of fact, at one point, you could pay your taxes in hemp. Now, hemp is extremely valuable because it has a high fiber content. It's one of the fastest growing cash crops. I mean, this plant comes to maturity within about 12 weeks. And when I say maturity, we're talking 12 to 20 feet. And then, and it's mostly usable fibrous stalk. Now, at the top of the plant, and it depends on the species of hemp, top of the plant, it might have a very small canopy of what looks like marijuana leaves, and typically it does not have any flower, or what you would call in the past bud. So, and CBD is something that's made naturally in the body. This particular cannabidiol, CBD, that this family of compounds are called cannabinoids, right? CBDs, but this particular CBD is called cannabidiol. Now, THC is the psychoactive component in marijuana. We're not talking about that. We're talking about CBD. And CBD has been shown, right? I'm not a medical doctor. I can't make any medical claims, but I know firsthand, and I have seen firsthand and heard thousands of secondhand stories from participants of the health benefits of this. And I will tell you what, it has a calming effect. And I'm not talking a sedative effect. It has a calming effect. It can fight cancer. It's been shown. I mean, I've seen the video where they put the CBD in a petri dish with healthy and then cancerous cells that are affected by cancer, and the cancer cells actually kind of implode. They explode from the inside out. It's ridiculously effective in fighting cancer, of course, in perfect conditions. Right? I'm not saying this is a cure-all, but it is a very potent component and a necessary. Actually, it's necessary to have in your body, but we don't generate enough. Now, what I was talking about in the past with CBDs is it used to be in our diet, right? We would often, as farmers in the United States and in other areas of the world, Austria and Germany and some other European countries, and in the Middle East, look, Egypt. This is the oldest cultivated plant that we know, over 4,000 years ago, that I'm aware of. I could be, but the oldest cultivated plant that I'm aware of is hemp. So you use the fiber for rope, but we used to cut the tops off. These leaves they really had no use, so they would feed them to the cattle. Now the cattle then had a naturally high amount of CBDs in the flesh, and then we would eat the flesh, so it became part of our diet. Anyway, if you want to learn more about it, there's a great website called echoconnect.org. It's a great place to learn about CBDs. I'll get off my high horse there, but you're going to see a lot more foods with this infused into it. And I don't mean just like tinctures and candies, but it's going to become a very popular item this year. Anyway, all right, please come back at the bottom of the hour here. We have a whole bunch more of these trends to talk about and whether I think they're right or wrong. But thanks for listening, folks. Again, it's so good to be back on the radio. We'll be right back in 2 minutes.
Dating today with all the crazies out there has to be nuts.
Yes, it really would. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a place you could go to find people who think like you do?
Like me, like libertarians and conservatives?
Right?
There is. WeThePeople.dating.
Amazing. What a genius idea. This is a site that you can go to if you're single and you are looking for somebody who you're going to think the same way, as for from a political freedom standpoint. If you want to date the right person for you, you'll find them in one place. WeThePeople.dating.
Take the pain out of ordering your diabetic testing supplies with Diathrive. Diathrive ships the testing supplies you need directly to you when you need them. Best of all, with plans starting as low as $8 a month, Diathrive is probably going to cost you less than what you're paying today. Diathrive is so convinced that you'll love their service, they're offering your first month of supplies free. Simply type the code DOC, D-O-C, at checkout. Diathrive.com. That's D-I-A, thrive.com.
It looks like you're losing.
I am.
Are you losing weight?
I am losing. I've lost about 10 pounds.
How are you doing it?
Funny name, but I've done it with Riduzone, RIDUzone.com, and the stuff works. It's, you get into all that, the molecule this and the found in that. All I can tell you is it makes you feel full, and it keeps your mind off of wanting to overeat.
And also boosts your metabolism, so you're burning more.
Yeah,
Try it today. It's going to work for you like it's worked for Brad and countless other people. Riduzone.com. RIDUzone.com.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American-made and serve those who serve us. Our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual veterans and firefighters in need nationwide. Check out neverforgottenapparel.com. Use promo code MATT, M-A-T-T, and get 15% off your purchase.
And we're back. Thanks for staying tuned. Spoony listeners, again, Chef Patrick on the Food Biz Pro show here. All right, so we were talking about food trends, and one of the things we'd spoken about were probiotics. Again, I don't think that trend's going away. When I spoke about prebiotics, one of the products that is on the market now, and actually they're sponsoring the show today, is Atrantil. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm just going to call it the big A right here. But Atrantil has been specially designed to help create an environment in the stomach for probiotics to work correctly. This is a true probiotic, and it works for us. Okay, this is made for people who feel like they have bloating, abdominal discomfort, or if you have a gluten sensitivity. Now, I'm not a doctor. I can't say specifically, oh yeah, this is really good for people with this, this, and this, but it is. If you feel like you're, you gained a little around the waist after the holidays, try Atrantil. This is a really, really powerful formula for gut health. And I, as a huge proponent of, probiotics, am an even bigger proponent for prebiotics. If you want to check your gut health, try Atrantil today. That's Atrantil. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And also, they're doing a little study to see how that works with Riduzone, one of our other sponsors. So I'll keep you posted on that. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about here on the list, again, we're talking about food trends for 2019. This is from the Food Channel. And so we've talked about CBDs. We've talked about, and CBDs, if you ever, I'm a huge proponent of CBDs. THC is a whole other thing. And yes, I have my thoughts on that. But CBDs, I think, are not a necessity for everyone, but I really think it can help everyone who hasn't ever tried those before. So polished casual dining. Now, polished casual. This is kind of a, I'm not sure I'm a fan of this. It's somewhere between like trendy, fast casual and fine dining. I'm just not sure if it's a broad enough niche for most of us to really understand. These are typically themed for the most part. And I'm not sure it's really my style. I'm not. So most of these are themed restaurants, and they're very, very niche oriented. And there's something unique, but at the same time, I don't know. It seems like these types of, like an underwater restaurant, perhaps in the Maldives, right? It's not a super expensive restaurant. It's kind of casual, but the setting is kind of otherworldly. I'm just not sure there's a large enough market for these restaurants, and we'll see. Now, I do believe that unique menu offerings will be huge this year. I mean, not just in those restaurants, but all other restaurants. I think what we used to consider eclectic food is going to become more commonplace. I really believe that. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, this one, I really am fascinated by blockchain technology. And by blockchain, I'm not talking about Bitcoin, but blockchain is, it started out as a security protocol floor for Bitcoin. It's so successful, as a matter of fact, that blockchain has never been hacked. Never. And we're not talking about no one has ever hacked someone who sells Bitcoin. We're just saying that Bitcoin itself, I'm sorry, not blockchain, but Bitcoin itself has never been hacked. So the great thing about blockchain is that is traceability. It's completely transparent. You can see every transaction ever performed, and it's instantaneous, right? So I think the great thing about this is using this technology to pinpoint areas of concern in the food service industry and in supply chain specifically. Like finding out where this E. coli breakout came from in the romaine lettuce this last summer. We finally found out it was from a farm in California, and they kind of pinpointed that. But if we had used blockchain technology, I'm not saying they didn't in doing this, but if blockchain had been used in this specific instance, then you would know in every store for every head of romaine bought, sold, and sent to market, you'd know where the seed was planted, who planted it, who picked it, who trucked it, where it was cleaned, packaged, and reboxed, where that was shipped to, and then eventually you would even understand what store that was sent to, which store number within that brand, and then eventually you would know which consumer actually ate that. So if a consumer bought one head of romaine that was controlled under this blockchain group, then you could trace that all the way back to the seed and where it was planted, and you'd know instantaneously, right? So those are some things that I find really, really unique about this technology. There are two companies out there that you might want to look to, and one is called TrueTag, and the other is called Tagit. And if you want to invest in this this futures coming market, I really think that this is one area of technology that you should look at as blockchain. And so the applications here are okay. Well, all of a sudden cannabis came up again, but so TrueTag and Tagit have partnered to bring edible these barcodes and blockchain transparency into the cannabis market. So one of the things about, you know what, I'm going to get off that topic right now. I could talk about it later. It would take me forever. But what I like about it is for medical cannabis that they have what's called seed to sale software. So they know who bought the seed, where they planted it. Again, it's basically the life cycle of the romaine. It's the same thing. Where it was planted, who harvested it, who it was sold to after that, who transported it in between, what end store it went to, and then who bought that item. And that way they can trace it anytime, anywhere. And then it's just great. It's great for transparency. You know what was produced and who bought it and how much was consumed. This is not just about anything to do about cannabis. This is just really about how that applies to the marketplace and transparency in food. Because I'll be honest, up until now, there's not been a lot of transparency in food. If there had been, then how come so many times when you have like a beef in soup, and I see this a lot in other countries, or beef stew, why is there so much other meat included in that? When they do genetic testing on these products, a lot of times like 70% of the products tested are tainted with other meat. And I don't mean just contaminated. I mean, there are pieces of other meat in it. How does that happen? I mean, that's got to just be choice by humans, right? All right, so employee care, that's another one. This is something I think that's kind of missing, especially in the restaurant industry. I don't think that we take enough initiative to provide our employees, especially hourly employees, with the services and amenities that most other employees in almost every other in every other industry are privy to. We often don't offer health insurance. We often don't offer paid time off, and that's even for full-time people, even after a year. And so I think that's something that you're going to see. I think you're going to see like Brinker. They're actually they have a huge education program for their employees. They offer a range of educational assistance to their employees, and including bilingual coaching and also tuition payment. So typically it's tuition reimbursement, but that's a great program. Union Square Hospitality Group in New York, one of my favorites. Danny Meyer, who's the head of that group, great chef and restaurateur. He's an advocate. He was a big advocate for no tipping, but they gave a plan to better compensate their employees this year. Actually, they raised the bar, and they gave them actually a career path for advancement. So what they did is they said, if you meet these milestones and you achieve these things outside of just your day-to-day job, if you get meet these educational requirements, then we give you a path forward to grow in the industry with us, which I think is brilliant. I don't think there are enough companies that mentor the individual hourly employee in the hospitality industry. Although there are a few, I don't think that there are enough. All right, so delivery's been all the rage the last few years. You have meal kits being delivered, right? That's one type of delivery. But all the restaurants now, you have Uber Eats, you have Grubhub, you have 15 other meal delivery services. The newest trend, and I think a big focus on this, I agree with this article, is going to be in takeout, or pickup rather, right? If you'll notice, almost every restaurant now has 3 or 4 or 5 slots reserved for patrons that are picking up. You're going to see that trend increase, and I think more and more restaurants are going to offer takeout and not so much delivery. Part of the reason with delivery is that as a restaurant, I have to pay a percentage or a flat fee to a delivery service. And it's expensive. It's really, there's always a flat fee minimum. So if I'm selling you a $10 meal and I have to pay $4 to deliver, I made zero money on that. Now, depends on the service, but I think pickup is going to be, it's a huge area of opportunity for restaurants to make just as much money and not having to provide nearly as much service nor pay for transportation of delivery. Now, delivery services are handy, though, and a lot of restaurants like them, but because they're so expensive, they try to make delivery something that they can do on their own. I can tell you from experience, even in good restaurants, and I've worked at some great ones, and I've had this same issue, even when I ran the kitchen, and as diligent as I was, and as many times as we checked the list off, and I even packaged every meal myself, quite often there's something missing from the meal, or one item is wrong. and that, I'll tell you what, that's an even greater frustration than someone who's in the restaurant when they order a meal getting something wrong. Because if you get it wrong when you deliver, they can't leave their house and come back and get the correct item. So you have to do one of two things. You apologize to the customer, you do some sort of partial refund of their card or whatever you do, or you say, hey, next time you come in, I'll mail you a coupon or a gift card. You can come in and we'll take care of you next time. All of that costs you money. The only other thing that happens if you don't do that is that you lose the guest. So what could have been a long-term diner or was a long-term diner now becomes either a less frequent diner or a non-diner. So I don't always recommend, I very often recommend against delivery service if you're a restaurant, and instead offer an incentive to come in and pick up. Now, with pickup, what that does is it may increase the load on the kitchen, which is fine. That's your largest capital asset in a restaurant, meaning you put more money into developing and constructing the kitchen than anything else in the restaurant. At least you should have if you're a restaurant. I mean, because that's the engine that is the Ferrari or the engine that is the Volkswagen, depending on your restaurant. And so that needs, you need to leverage that. That's where all your capital investment went, at least, 20 to 30% of the cost of the entire restaurant. That's also where most of your dollars are spent in labor. Now, kitchen is typically, the labor in a kitchen as a percentage is typically, 3 to 5 times higher than what it costs to run the service side of a restaurant. And there's a reason for that. Servers get tips and the kitchen doesn't, so you just have to pay more. But I'm telling you, if you don't leverage that asset, if you don't somehow try to use it at its highest capacity, which is what it's designed for, then it's really hard to get your money back. Now, there's a fine line there, and I'll give you an example. Starbucks, they started this initiative where you can order on the app and go and pick your coffee up at the store in a couple of minutes or whenever you get there. Sometimes it's 10 minutes or 15. I've seen coffee sit there for 20 minutes because people just don't ever get there. The problem with this is that depending on the store, it can become a bottleneck. And there's a store which is very friendly service. As a matter of fact, Doc and I used to work there every morning. We would go there every day, spend several hours, and I would typically spend anywhere from $5 to $20 there. And Doc would probably spend the same because we would stay through multiple meal periods. We would go late morning after the show, and then we would grab a cup of coffee and then have a snack, and then you get another cup of coffee or a juice and a water. It starts to add up. Well, what happened was the way that this particular store is designed, there was no way to add additional production machinery for the pickup clientele only. This is also not a drive-through store. It's a walk-in only. So what happens is everybody has to come in and pick up their coffee, which is fine. But the way they design the store is it's wide at the front. So you have an entry point at the front on the left-hand side. As you walk through the door, that left-hand side, if you stay on that left-hand side, it takes you all the way back to the restaurants, or the restrooms, except there are a row of tables, two tops, what we call two tops, where people can sit facing each other, one along the bench seating against that wall, and then one person at each table facing them. That goes all the way to the back of the restaurant. There's a big conference table, but it's basically the same thing all the way to the back of the storefront, or the store, and then the restrooms are in the back behind that. If you want to order coffee, then you go in and you go to the right and you go behind little stanchions, those stands with the cord you see at the movie theaters that keep you in line, keep you orderly, and you go behind those and you snake from the right back to the left to the back corner towards where the restrooms are. So it bottlenecks at the back. So it looks like a pencil, basically, that sharpens right to the point where people all pick up their coffee. So And because that's in a really high, really like population dense area. It's not just population dense, it's business. It's a very, very busy business area, and it's a high end business district. And it's in a very busy shopping area. It's like a strip mall, but it's super high end. Now you've just doubled the traffic just because of that. So what happens is you walk in there, and if you're in line and you order a coffee, it may take you, I think I've seen the longest wait I ever had was 27 minutes. That was 27 minutes for a grande decaf vanilla latte. Grande decaf vanilla latte, 27 minutes. Now, I had nowhere else to go, so I just sat there and I watched, but I saw several customers leave. All right, so that's one example where and this is a mega corporation. You can't tell me that Starbucks doesn't have enough money to put into the thought process behind this for some of their stores, right? They could have simply evaluated what would happen. So all these people, instead of now waiting in line, they order their coffee online, they go in, and they still end up waiting because you can fit 3 baristas behind the back, all right, the back counter. Actually, you can fit maybe 4 people total, 5 if you really try. One person runs a register, the other person runs the register. That's 2. Those they just run the registers, and then they get the regular coffees, right? No, they don't use the espresso machine. They have a single espresso machine, and then they on one end, which is so you have the cash register, and towards the bottleneck is the big espresso machine, and then they have the counter where you pick up. To the right side in the back is where the microwave and all the other pastries and things are. So you can have one person working back there, 2 people working a register, and maybe 2 people working on the barista stand, one doing coffees, one doing smoothies, etc., and cold drinks. The thing is, they are serving an ungodly number of people. I mean, I've seen where they have all the tickets printed out from online or from ordering on the app, and they'll have 30 or 40 or 50 tickets come out at one time. You have that many tickets, and now you have a store which seats like 75 or 80 people. It's a big Starbucks, bigger by comparison than most, and you have, say, double that number of orders online every hour as you get walk-ins. It's just as a matter of fact, I went back there about 10 times after they started the online ordering, and I've never been back. I just can't take it. It's a great store because there's lots of energy and there's really comfortable seating if you can find a seat. But seeing the disappointment in the faces of not just the employees but the guest, but seeing the guests, even more so though, seeing the employees so stressed out all the time, unable to look up and smile and say hi to the regular guests. It kind of saddened me. So yes, one of the big areas of opportunity for restaurants is to leverage your capital asset, which is your kitchen. Try to ramp it up to full production, either through delivery or pickup. I recommend pickup if you can. And then you can offer an incentive, right? Or maybe there's a delivery fee, but you say, but if you come in and pick it up, there's no charge. Again, what you want to do is leverage the high cost of running the kitchen, right? Whether that's labor or just the cost of overall, kitchen equipment and construction. All right, food philanthropy. Yes, we're going to see a lot more of that. I think we're already seeing that. Tom Shoes is a good business model when you think about a business that is philanthropic in nature. So show me your care is something that people want to see. They want to see that you care as a company. And we'll look. I'm not sure how that's going to play out yet, but you're going to see big and little brands doing that more this year. So new heat, I think you're going to see different types of. So you're going to see spiciness incorporated into foods that you normally wouldn't think of. I'll give you a good example. There's a great in Aaron Sanchez, probably one of my favorite chefs. He does a great version of a Mexican brownie. And in that brownie, he actually puts, there's cayenne pepper and cinnamon. And if you've never had his particular recipe, as a matter of fact, I'll post it here in a minute as soon as I'm off the air. But Aaron Sanchez, look this up. It is probably the best brownie I've ever had. But I think you're going to start seeing the heat, the spiciness, but as a subtle flavor, incorporated into dishes that you wouldn't typically see. I think you're already seeing jalapeno and habanero, especially those two, infused into so many different different dishes, salsas, soups. You see them in a lot of dressings nowadays. Habanero is really popular in sauces and marinades, but I think you're going to see that. And we're not talking just in a unique way of in Mexican flavored foods, but also in foods from Thailand and other places like that. Thai chili is actually one of my favorites, but man, if you eat too many, they get really, really spicy. So I think innovation in pet food I think is going to be a big one this year. A really big one. As a matter of fact, I have a really good idea. I think we may be able to implement pretty soon about a healthy pet food. It's salmon and coconut, actually. So many dogs are having allergies with chicken nowadays because of the chicken meal that's put into their food and these unhealthy preservatives and other items. We're working on a formulation for a salmon and coconut based dog food that's 100% natural, no preservatives, and it's packaged fairly locally. It's just north of Dallas. So I'll keep you posted. So those are some of the food trends this year. There's so many other lists. Whole Foods, they have their list. There's Kroger. I like looking at Kroger and Whole Foods and seeing where they compare and contrast, or where they overlap and where there's a contrast. I think one of the biggest areas is biohacking this year. So biohacking are when you go to a doctor and they take a blood sample, and based on your blood type and your genetic makeup, your diet is specifically designed for you. I think that's going to be a huge trend. We saw a lot of it last year. I think it's going to become more commonplace. The other one is these infused foods. So you're going to have drinks and foods that are infused already with turmeric, CBD, with chia. These are really highly dense, highly densely nutritionally valuable products. I think you're going to see a lot of those coming up. I want to talk about another project that we have coming up. Also, is I've been working with a doctor based out of Houston, and she's a French doctor and nutritionist, and Dr. Claude Mondier, and that's Mondier, and she's a medical doctor and a immunologist. But we're working on something. It's called the Avocado Affair, and I'll give more information on this later. But avocados are kind of a unique fruit in that they're almost, in my opinion, and we've had this conversation, the doctor and I have, the perfect human, from a biological perspective, the perfect human, food source. And so we're working on, there are some 2,000 recipes I think that have been assembled. The book has been completed, and as we roll forward with that, we'll give you more information, but look for that. It's going to be called the Avocado Affair. We're working on that and a few other products. But one of the other superfoods that I really like, and if you haven't been there, go to SpoonyWildRice.com. If you've never had wild rice before, you could really substitute that for any other grain in your diet, and think of this more as a grain than a rice, because it's not really a rice. It's the only grain native to North America. The things that we think of as rice here are actually not from North America. They're from other areas. But, wheat was not native to the United States. But it's such a healthy product for you. It's such a healthy food source. It's almost a complete, it's got enough amino acids, almost a complete protein. It's gluten-free. It can be used as a simple rice substitute or as a grain substitute. But with that, you can make salads, cold salads, hot salads. You can use it as a base as you would any other grain. But also you can use that as a ground. They make flours for gluten-free baking. They also have a kind of a porridge-like breakfast cereal. They make a polenta, a savory polenta with what are those mushrooms called? So anyway, it's just this wonderful savory polenta. But you can actually use that as a waffle mix, a wild rice waffle mix, and make savory waffles or pancakes. They have so many other jellies and jams and honeys and things like that. Please check it out. It's SpoonyWildRice.com, SpoonyWildRice.com. It's actually Minostalgia, but if I can't spell it, you probably can't either, and I'm a pretty good speller. So I talked about starting our series on Japanese food this week. I spoke a little bit last week about how to make the #1 broth in Japanese food, ichiban dashi. I talked about miso paste a little bit, and some other food items. I want to do that when I don't get interrupted. And next week, a lot of the other partners are going to be gone. I will be here without producer Ron, who really plays God as far as making sure my show gets out every day. And I want to do that when maybe next week would be a good time to do that. So each day I'll record a 15-minute segment on Japanese food. We've gone through a little bit of miso. We went through a little bit of the katsuobushi, but we'll start with miso next week. So we'll start with all things soy. Now, when you think about all things soy, we think about what? When you're in a Japanese restaurant, we think about edamame, right? The little soybeans in the pod, which they cook. They're boiled. They're tossed in kosher salt. But then there's soy sauce. There's what do you have? Tofu, right? You have natto is a Japanese specialty. Natto is something. It's a fermented soybean snack, so to speak. And natto, if you've never been in Japan or lived in Japan, even if you have been to Japan and lived in Japan, it's typically what Americans consider to be the worst tasting, worst smelling Japanese snack. Now, I happen to disagree. But natto is kind of a sticky, gooey. I'll have to, I'll bring some in. I'm going to bring some in. I'm going to eat it on the air. But I'll bring a variety of those products. You have soy sauce, soybean, tofu, natto. Trying to think what else you have from that. Tamari, which is basically soy sauce without the wheat, naturally fermented, and that's that's gluten-free version of soy sauce. For the most part, but there are a number of other items. So we'll go through soy, all things soy. Then we'll go through rice. And I'll tell you, it's the base of Japanese cuisine is the rice. As a matter of fact, I believe it was the samurai warriors. They were actually, as much as the Roman soldiers were paid in salt, the warriors in Japan were paid with rice. It was their currency. And if you've never had really good Japanese rice, it is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Nishiki is a brand that you can buy in almost any grocery store here. If you can find Tama Nishiki, which is, so Nishiki is Nishiki, Nishiki. Tama Nishiki, it's not the same company, but theirs is a little more expensive. It is the best rice I think I've had. There are more expensive rice out there. But whether I'm making sushi or I'm just eating the rice plain as the base of a meal, the starch on the side, so to speak, the potato to the meat. Nishiki is my favorite rice by far. But we can talk about I'll talk about the other varieties of rice, but specifically about Japanese medium grain rice. Then let's see. That's Monday, Tuesday. So Wednesday, then we shall talk about, I think Wednesday we talk about the different Japanese variety of vegetables because they eat things differently than we do. Matter of fact, what's really popular in Japan, which I had never had until I ate at a Japanese restaurant in my late teens, early adulthood, they take spinach, baby clumps of spinach, and they pull the whole plant out of the ground, and then they just cut off just the tip of the root, but they leave the whole thing intact. So now you have like these 5 stalks with the lettuce leaf attached to the end, and they blanch or cook that entire plant, and you eat it that way. They sometimes chop it up and put other, like a broth or this light sauce over it. But I'm telling you, that's fantastic, and there's so much more nutrition to it that way rather than just eating the leaves as we often do here. We'll talk about kabocha, which is Japanese pumpkin, and turnips, and burdock root, and all sorts of fun things Japanese. But anyway, I had a great Japanese meal over the weekend that really inspired that. We will talk about that another time. One of the best restaurants I've been to, but I don't want to spoil the pot for next week. Anyway, I want to say thanks for listening. You heard Doc Thompson was back on the show today. In the next few weeks, we have like 7 or 8 new shows coming on. You got to stay tuned. Trey Chapman's going to be here with Trey's live chow down. Oh man, this is going to be fun stuff. Anyway, Chef Patrick Mosher, the Food Biz Pro. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Ciao for now.
This is the only 24-hour take-anywhere platform dedicated to food and fun. We're Spoony.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Val Dior. President Trump just wrapping up his address at the American Farm Bureau Federation's 100th annual convention in New Orleans, a crowd that he's very comfortable